this area, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, is one of the richest natural gas suppliers in the world, actually. And the unique part about this area is the infrastructure that is here when it comes to electrical generation. And so it's a very convenient place that you could set up a solar panel array and plug into the grid. You could set up a natural gas cogen facility and generate power.
NAI Global presents How's Biz?
Greetings. Welcome to NAI Global's How's Biz podcast. I'm Gary Marsh. Today's guest is Bryce Custer. Bryce is both a SIOR and CCIM. He's with NAI Burns Scalo. Bryce has a deeper background with NAI Global. He started out his career in commercial real estate, I believe, in 2009 or so, but it's been a while with NAI Spring in Canton, Ohio. As the energy crisis in America and attempt or an effort to become energy independent coincided with the discovery of shale and fracking, Bryce moved his business over toward West Virginia, where the Marcellus shale fields are, and formed an LLC and eventually an NAI Global office called NAI Ohio River Corridor. So we'll get into more of that as we go deeper in the conversation, but welcome to the podcast, Bryce.
Great, Gary. Thanks so much for having me today.
You bet. And then as we've discussed before, part of what we always like to accomplish today is for you to share some of the secrets to your success, and think of an audience of younger professional brokers just getting into the business or just hitting their stride. That's a lot of our listener audience, as well as veterans of commercial real estate from all walks of life that are both NAI Global people as well as non. So keep that in mind as we talk. But one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the podcast, and we've done some other work with you in the past because of your unique expertise in energy and whatnot, and plastics and all that, which is produced there in that Appalachian corner of Southern Pennsylvania, West Virginia, where, again, your work is with the Ohio River, is that NAI Burns Scalo recently acquired the territories in West Virginia, the counties of I'm sorry, I'm not sure I pronounced this, Monongalia, Wood, Hancock, Brooke, Ohio, and Marshall. Is that correct?
That's correct, Gary. Yes.
And what is the correct pronunciation?
We'll work on your pronunciation, though. Monongalia.
Monongalia. Okay, well, you were named NAI Burns Scalo's VP of Energy Services, which is a new sector for them, and a new business unit, if you will. They're a traditional real estate firm, office, industrial, retail. So maybe why don't you just start with, how did this all evolve? How is it that you're now part of Burns Scalo? A little more background on how we got to today.
Yeah, well, great, Gary. I'd love to do that. Gary, I guess really it starts. I graduated from Kent State University with a degree in chemistry and worked in a chemical laboratory and an environmental laboratory for many, many years. And from then it evolved. Corning, out of Corning, New York, bought our company. I worked for Corning for quite a few years, and then I started a consulting company doing managerial development, sales training, and development. I then sold that to a group out of Northern Ohio, and all this at the same time. I was a commercial real estate investor. In 2009, I decided to get my license so that I could not only market my properties, but if somebody came to look at my property and they weren't interested in it, I could help them find another property. And so in 2009, the Springs graciously allowed me to come in and play in their sandbox. And so to your point, as far as my earlier introduction, I am actually still with NAI Spring in Ohio, and in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, I'm under the NAI Burns Scalo flag. A lot of that's
Got it.
due to licensing law. So I just wanted to make that clear that in Ohio, I still do work for NAI Spring, and I've really enjoyed my affiliation. Actually, when I had the NAI Ohio River Corridor, COVID closed us down, and I came back to Spring then, and was doing quite a bit of work with them. But Gary, to answer your question, this really all, my focus really started right around 2010, 2011, when somebody talked about natural gas in the territory. And there were some other opportunities that I had missed growing up as far as the great investments. The internet, I thought the internet was a flash in the pan. So here we are today on a Zoom call. But in 2011, realized that I really wanted to focus on the energy sector. And so I attended the Ohio Governor's Conference and met with Aubrey McClellan at the time with Chesapeake Energy, and really made this my focus. And so I focused on the counties where the drilling was going on. And of course, we talk about drilling in the Marcellus and Utica Shale. Fracking, of course, takes a bad rap, even though we've been fracking since the early 50s, but it continues to take a bad rap. So this area, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, is one of the richest natural gas suppliers in the world, actually. If you were to look at this as its own country, it would be number 3 in the world. So we're very fortunate to have this unique asset underneath our feet, literally. And so that's really what started my whole career, we'll say, in the energy services. And when I say energy services, it's kind of a broad umbrella. It really started out natural gas, and it continues to be natural gas. But as things have evolved, I am now doing quite a bit of work in the renewable sectors. Some of my clients had purchased former coal facilities and shut them down, former steel facilities and shut them down. And the unique part about this area is the infrastructure that is here when it comes to electrical generation. And so it's a very convenient place that you could set up a solar panel array and plug into the grid. You could set up a natural gas cogen facility and generate power. And so one of my early assignments was working with a company out of Boston, and we did site selection work for them on 2 cogen facilities. One generates 750 megawatts, the other generates about 1150 megawatts. And so, just those 2 projects combined are a little over $2 billion of market value from purchasing the ground to generating the power. And so it's been a real focus, and that has been really a real benefit of having my degree in chemistry. Being able to meet with a lot of the different clients, being able to talk about the molecules that they're bringing out of the ground, and also too talking about a lot of the different processes that they're going through and how they're utilizing natural gas to create a variety of different products. Anything from Monaca, PA, where Shell has built a new cracker facility. They're cracking ethane into polyethylene for the plastics industry, to we've worked with a potato chip manufacturer that uses natural gas as part of their process and part of their flavorings. And so it's really been great to have that background, to understand the chemistry involved, and it continues to evolve. And now we're focused from natural gas. Now we're focused on hydrogen. We're focused on carbon capture. We're focused and also in the renewable sector, doing a lot of work in the power area with solar companies, with hydropower on the Ohio River, and a variety of different technologies. A long answer and I hope I answered your question, Gary.
I think you covered most of it. And I wanted to point out, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you say power infrastructure and generation, and again, I know it's because you and I have talked before, you're also concurrently saying, and this is the most important part perhaps, is power distribution.
Correct.
Because as you've pointed out in the past, where that region is located is in within 100 miles of places called New York City, other eastern hubs, large population centers that consume vast quantities of power.
Yeah, if you look at our location, we're within a day's drive of about 70% of the population. And so, from here to New York City is a day's drive. And again, we do have vast population, and that's why this is such a strategic area for a lot of these companies to locate.
Well, and through all the industrial calls you and I participated in, which audience, I'm referencing the NAI Global Industrial Council calls that Steve Pastor hosts. Bryce is an active participant in those. Bryce and others constantly say power and water is
Yeah.
what's going to drive American manufacturing. And what's unsaid when we say that is not just manufacturing, but pretty much everything. I mean, our entire infrastructure and lives is reliant on power and water, obviously. I mean, throw in clean air and you have the basic threes. So these are some of the most important things happening in our lives currently. And again, on other podcasts, we've talked about data centers as big power consumers. And we need to generate more power in America, and we generally are not. So Bryce, you explained the power piece well, but jump into our favorite subject, real estate. Obviously, when you're talking about solar panel fields, et cetera, we're talking about land. All these different facilities require real property to, put facilities in. So, in addition to land, what are some of the unique real estate requirements that you're seeing in your market, and how is it that you facilitate those requirements?
Well, Gary, some of the unique requirements that we see in this particular area, and again, I see it primarily due to my focus, is doing quite a bit of work on the Ohio River, for instance. I was working with a client out of Turkey that was deciding where should they put their import facilities. Should they do it in the Gulf Coast, or should they do it in the Ohio, West Virginia area? And based upon our conversations, we ended up finding them a facility on the Ohio River with both barge facilities and rail facilities. And so when you look at what the Ohio River does for us, I can bring up a barge tow, which is from 15 barges is considered a tow. And one barge tow is equivalent to about 600 rail cars or about 1,030 semi trucks. And so by this client from Turkey, they're bringing in it's called barytes or barite that's used in the drilling industry, and they bring it from Turkey. They bring it up the Mississippi River, up over to the Ohio River, and then here to West Virginia, offload and then grind and manufacture. And so the Ohio River is a very it's interesting. It's actually a very inexpensive transportation system from the Gulf Coast, which is where the majority of our plastics have been coming from over the years. And now that we can produce plastics here in our region, it makes a considerable difference just on those transportation costs. And so what we're able to do, and as I'm working on requirements for my clients, looking for barge facilities. And for instance, it's very difficult right now under the current administration to get a barge, just to get a permit for a new barge cell. And so any existing barge cells are a premium. So right now it's about $1.5 million and about an 18-month journey to get a barge cell permitted. And so I'm able to work with clients, and I've sold multiple terminals up and down the Ohio River. The majority of the stuff I sell, Gary, is actually not on the market. So a lot of clients are coming to me with what their unique need is, and then I'll go out and find it. But right now, water is a critical need, and the Ohio River provides that not only for transportation, but also too for process. And as you said earlier, power. There's literally no extra power in the United States right now. I'm working on an assignment on the West Coast for a client that needed, just something as simple as 30 megawatts of power, and that power is not available out west. And so, working with similar clients here in our area that have large power demands, for instance, as you mentioned earlier, working with data centers, and that we're actually working with them, and we are able to site power a generation system, a cogen facility up to, let's say, 500 megawatts. We can put that on top of a natural gas line, generate power for the data center, and basically create what we call a power island. And so that's one of the things that I'm working on as well. And so, back to what you were saying, and how does this apply to real estate? It's all about location, 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 and it's all about finding them the appropriate facility. And so, working with these groups, finding them land and land requirements, finding them rail, finding them barge, and most importantly, right now, Gary, finding them power. Any sites with power of any significance are in high demand, and so we're looking in our particular area to generate the amount of power for a data center. Some of them are looking at 2028 to 2030 before they're going to have enough power to even run that data center. And so we've got a solution to help these data centers get up and running quicker by pulling the molecules out of the ground and then by utilizing and purchasing turbines to generate power themselves. And we can do this too, Gary, in conjunction with renewable energy, such as a solar array or hydropower along the Ohio River. So there's a lot of different options that we have.
Has the manufacturing world got the message? Because I do a lot of reading and I don't really see this in any major media, and yet it seems crazy that you have such an abundance of a raw material that's so essential, and yet you would think companies and industry would be flocking to your market.
We are working on getting that message out. I am on a board of directors of a group called Shell Crescent, and through Shell Crescent, and also too working with the state of West Virginia. I've had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. to Select USA and to meet with a variety of clients about the advantage of our area. Through these groups, I've had the ability to actually the honor to go to the Romanian embassy and meet with a bunch of dignitaries from Europe and talk about what our area has to offer. And also too, through the state of West Virginia, 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to make a couple trips to Washington, D.C. to meet with some people at the White House to discuss the advantages of our area as well. So we're just really trying to get the word out there. Whenever people think about energy and they think of the Gulf Coast, especially when it comes to natural gas, when it comes to petroleum products. But we really are the next, and as far as I'm concerned, the best place to be. And and unfortunately too, this week is a prime example of that. Our area is very resilient to natural disasters, and so when we have a facility generating a petrochemical facility, we typically don't have to worry about hurricanes in our particular area. It's just a relatively safe place to be as well, which is really why, Gary, this area really has always been the manufacturing hub of the United States. Going back to World War II and before. When you look at the infrastructure that we have, which is really the benefit that we have, is all the legacy of manufacturing in our area. We have that electrical infrastructure, we have that rail infrastructure, we have the water infrastructure with the Ohio River, and so this place has gotten a bad rap as the Rust Belt, but I really see the future is extremely bright, and we're going to be a real force to reckon with here in the near future.
I'd say, well, it's a little surprising. Something that I follow closely and personally interested in is the notion of an American industrial policy. So I'm a little surprised that your region isn't being encompassed into some notion of an American industrial policy, but that's another day, another conversation, perhaps.
No, Gary, and I would say that it is, in certain areas. If you look, I was in West Virginia not too terribly long ago, and they're passing some legislation right now. They just passed the legislation for nuclear energy, preparing for the future of small modular reactors, which I was fortunate to give a presentation in Atlanta not too terribly long ago to talk about small modular reactors and the benefit that they will have to us, and especially again in this area because we have the unique infrastructure available to us. West Virginia, and when we talk about power, it's really interesting because we have basically 5 different grid areas, and we happen to fall into the PJM grid. And so, and in also 2 different states, some states are regulated when it comes to power, some states are deregulated. So it's interesting because in Ohio, it's a deregulated electrical state, and West Virginia is a regulated electrical state. Both have their pros and their cons, but in West Virginia, again, they're passing legislation to allow companies to literally create and generate their own power and use their own power, what I call, or the term behind the meter. And then you asked about, manufacturing. We're very blessed to have a very large steel company, which is embarking on a $3.8 billion project in Mason County, West Virginia. And they are actually looking at both nuclear power and fission power as one of their components to power this facility. And so they really are looking towards the future as far as renewable energy. So that's very exciting as well.
Wow, needless to say, there's a lot going on. Well, it's all good news. So why don't we use that, Bryce, to segue into your affiliation with NAI Burns Scalo. Really, what excites you most about this new chapter of your professional career, as well as working with the resources of NAI Burns Scalo?
I'm really excited about working with NAI Burns Scalo and the entire NAI Burns Scalo team. Their broker Jim Scalo and Pittsburgh is putting together, what I consider one of the top teams in the Midwest. They've got a fantastic reputation throughout Pittsburgh and the Pennsylvania area, and then to take that reputation into the West Virginia area is very exciting. By being affiliated with NAI Burns Scalo, I'm also able I'm currently getting my Pennsylvania license and being able to practice both in Pennsylvania and in West Virginia to help them and their team in energy services, understanding the nuances of power, of energy, and also then too the natural gas business as well, of which they're already doing quite a bit of business with different natural gas companies in the office sector. And so now I really want to help and use our talent to help them in the industrial sector as well, throughout West Virginia. So I'm very excited about it. Instead of being a one-person team in West Virginia, I've got the entire support staff of NAI Burns Scalo behind me, and it's extremely exciting.
I would imagine that's great. And so, you mentioned some of the real estate requirements and needs that are happening. Are you currently working on any projects now that you're able to discuss or disclose that are directly associated with your new association with NAI Burns Scalo?
Gary, we continue to work on quite a few projects. There are some projects in the West Virginia area that unfortunately I wish I could talk about, but I can't. We had a large closing next week with a large steel manufacturer that will be doing a great deal of business in the northern panhandle. And when I say the northern panhandle of West Virginia, that would be the Weirton, West Virginia, and north. There's a great deal of activity going on in the Weirton area right now. A new company has just established and has begun production called Form Energy, and they are they'll be one of the nation's largest suppliers of basically battery storage for renewable energy. We continue to work on some other projects for assimilations of land for data centers, working on some of those projects right now. Unfortunately, I'm not able to give a lot of detail, and working on another project with another large assimilation of land that's for a manufacturing facility, which is also the northern panhandle. So to answer your question, Gary, the activity in West Virginia continues to grow exponentially. The state of West Virginia, the West Virginia Department of Economic Development, they're doing an incredible job. And fortunately, they rely on our expertise to help them out, and so that's been a real benefit to us, and that'll again carry over to the affiliation with NAI Burns Scalo, and all the additional tools that they have in their tool bag to help clients with their facilities. And we have the opportunity now to work with clients for build to suit, for development, and other ancillary businesses that NAI Burns Scalo has to really help our clients.
It all sounds like a really good fit. Any certain challenges, I should say, Bryce, that you see out there that maybe something you have to face or deal with either? I mean, we're already getting to the end of this year, but looking at 2025, any particular challenges, or are you pretty much seeing blue skies and the wind at your back?
I never see blue skies and the wind at my back, but
come on.
No, but it is, this, I would say that the challenge has been primarily this year, 2024. And the challenge is business is going to do business regardless of who is in power in Washington, D.C. We both know that. The question is, what does the playing field look like? What are the different rules and regulations that we'll be faced with? And so right now, I'm sitting on quite a few projects. A lot of the people that I'm dealing with are really, it's not that they're waiting until November 5th to see who gets elected, whether they'll do the project or not. At that point in time, it depends upon, how will they do the project? And so they just want to know what's ahead of them. Right now in our particular area, hydrogen and hydrogen hubs is a tremendous discussion. We have what they call the Arch2 hydrogen hub. And what will happen with the hydrogen hub? And so from my perspective, I am really looking forward to this election to be over so that we know exactly how we can best advise our clients moving forward. And as far as blue skies, I do see blue skies in 2025. I think that 2025 is going to be a wonderful year, not only for the area where I'm at in Ohio, but also too for Pennsylvania and West Virginia. It's going to be an excellent time as far as some of these technologies. All the technologies we're talking about, they improve daily. And so, whereas solar, for instance, it used to take 10 acres to generate 1 megawatt. Now we can generate 1 megawatt on 5 acres. And so as technology improves, that'll be good for all of us. I'm also seeing too, we talk about working with a client, hydropower on the Ohio River. We're seeing the advantage of technologies in the production of electricity using hydro. It doesn't impact the river as much. It doesn't impact the fish, and yet it produces substantially more power than hydro facilities of the past. So I think technology is going to be great. I think that 2025, I'm extremely excited, very, very excited.
Well, it sounds like you've got things lined up pretty good for yourself and for your respective firms. There are two. Again, you mentioned NAI Spring and NAI Burns Scalo. Well, with that, we'd like to thank you for being a great podcast guest on behalf of NAI Global. Thank you, Bryce Custer. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Gary. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to How's Biz, presented by NAI Global. Review, share, subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next episode.